Hi, welcome to the Poleshift News. Guys, a couple of things I want to talk about. There's some juicy stuff later on in this video, but I want to just get out of the way a few things first. First of all, over on poleshiftnews.com, I've put the keys in for the graphs because I know I've explained it about 4 or 5 times, but you know, some people just come straight over to the website that haven't seen many of the videos and they might have missed that part which explains the key to these graphs that we've put up there. I've also added one for the magnetosphere, and I've tried to keep it as simple as possible. You know, if you think that I could add something else, then please do. One of the questions in the comments section on the last couple of videos I did was the amount of readings are different on some of these charts, and that's absolutely true, but it doesn't affect the actual number. What we're interested in, if you remember, we calibrated these graphs and the TriMag system to 10 on the chart on the left hand column, and the reason why we did that, because if the numbers increased above 10, it would mean that the magnetic north pole was tracking easterly. If it went below 10, it would mean that it was tracking westerly. So long as you know, when you look at these charts and you bear that in mind, that's the really important thing about them. The other thing is, at the bottom of the line, this lower line here is just the magnetometer which took the readings, and usually we're only interested in one of our magnetometers, which is number 1. The other two are just backups in case we do lose data at some point on number 1 for a breakdown, or you know, a malfunction, or something's gone wrong. Like recently, that happened with the master. We lost the transceiver for a period of time, and of course we whipped it out, put a brand new one in. So this line in the center that is just above 10 is the heading, right? Again, if it's above 10, it's tracking easterly. If it's below, it's going west. And what else we got? The hour. So these zigzag lines, they only go up to 24 and then they go back down to 1. And then they start off again, and that represents each hour in the day. So you can quickly see how many days worth of data we've had over the course of the chart. So the numbers then at the bottom are just there to give us reference on how many times we've taken a reading. And as you can see on this particular graph, there's something like 398,000, and that's because we're taking a reading every 3 seconds. And you know, obviously, as you can imagine, there is a lot of 3 seconds in, you know, almost a month. What we try and do is take out the data on the 17th of every month, and then process the data into a chart, and then we add it to this. Again, same sort of thing with the magnetosphere data. That squiggly line just below the 199, it represents the strength of the magnetosphere, and we're measuring in microteslas, and we calibrated it around about 198 microteslas, and you can see how that has played out over the period of time, which is around about a month. I always put the dates when we started the recording, and then the dates to where we've ended, and then when I put the next chart up, it should just all match up. And just briefly before we leave this, I just wanted to show you the raw format of which the data comes in from the magnetometers. So we've got the magnetometer, which is in the first column, A, that's mag 1, and then we've got the heading of mag 1, and then we've got the hour. And these are the 3. I usually chop off these 3 columns, and then I graph those columns or process them columns to get the chart that we do. I usually chop off all the rest of this data, which is just the hour at which it was recorded, the seconds at which it was recorded, and the day of the month and the year that it was recorded. The reason why I don't put all that in on the graph is because you could imagine when you've got something like 900,000 readings, you would have just a blur at the bottom of all the dates on there. But if I need to go back to show you guys anything, I'm going to come straight back to this raw data, and I'm going to bring it up in the raw data, and it's very easy to do. I mean, you can filter it out from, you know, we just press this, we can filter out all the different types of readings that mag 1's had over the month period, and as you can see, it does fluctuate, and it does sometimes hit 1111. Now when we do get 11 or over, we know it's moved 1 degree. But what we want to see is, right at the moment now, we're getting a lot of 1065s, the occasional 11 degrees. What we want to see, so we can confirm it definitely has moved a degree, is a row of 11s. And then, perhaps next year, if it hasn't picked up any speed, it will be a row of 12s, 13s, etc. And it will progress like that. So, okay guys, you're probably wondering what the juicy part of this video is, and we're going to get to it. The reason why I haven't commented on this already is because I usually like to just wait a little bit and see what surfaces after an event such as what has happened in Syria, with regarding the allegations that my country, the United Kingdom, America and France have made against Assad, using chemical weapons on his own people. First of all, this is an independent country, and I think it is none of our business what these leaders do in their own country, so long as it doesn't interfere in let's say, the United Kingdom, or if you live in the United States, or in anywhere in Europe. As long as what is going on in this country, in Syria, isn't interfering with our business, then we should really, make advisories, okay, with our diplomats, if we've got diplomats in these countries that are, so-called making these attacks, and that should be it. We should encourage that way. But what we have done, and on the basis of no evidence whatsoever, is we have engaged the United Kingdom, the United States of America and France over the last couple of weeks, engaged in attacking this country. There were reports of around 120 odd Tomahawk cruise missiles launched, and less than 50% of those Tomahawk missiles hit the targets. Yet it was classified as a successful mission. I don't know. I would classify if the accuracy of these missiles had been more than 80%, not less than 50%. I would say that was not a successful mission, and I also think it's a barbaric act what we've done. Like I say, I don't think we've got any part in this, but my main point is this, guys. It's not really about the fact that we've attacked another country for pretty much no reason. My point is this: there was no evidence of chemical weapons being used. There was no delegation assigned to go to the area of where these weapons were used to make sure that they was actual chemical weapons. There was no checking of any sorts. This was like, it was almost as though Trump and Theresa May got their intel from probably a YouTube video, and then went out on the pretext of that to attack this country. I hope, guys, that you are fully aware of false flag attacks and how frequent they are becoming. But the point is that these people are not acting in the best interests of their country's people. Theresa May isn't acting in the best interests of the United Kingdom and the people of the United Kingdom, and Trump likewise, and the French Prime Minister likewise. They are using the resources of the country, paid by the taxpayer. Now, cruise missiles ain't cheap. They're about £1 million a shot, or £800,000 a shot. You imagine how much 120 of these plus cost the taxpayers. But it is for their personal reasons, and not the safety of the people of the country, that they are going on these attacks. It is for lucrative business opportunities, and I think, from what I can gather, this is all about pipelines running from Syria. And if you look into it a little bit more, I think you'll agree that it's all about corporations, and that's why our governments are using the civil defence mechanisms such as the Air Force, the Navy, and etc. to attack. Now, in this incident, I think it's nothing more than allowing a mafia mob control of these resources, and this is exactly what is happening here, guys. And the big point is that this is going to get out of hand at some point. If we keep provoking that super nuclear power over in the east, Russia, it is only going to be a matter of time before they think to themselves, you know what, we are avoiding the inevitable. At some point, we need to retaliate. And at that point, I don't think anyone in this world is going to have too much sympathy for the United Kingdom or the United States of America if we do end up being obliterated in, possibly another world war. But these things are on the horizon. If we didn't even realise that what we face with nature at this given time is enough, we have to, add more fuel to this fire and create situations of further instability. But the point is, guys, we are allowing this to happen. We are allowing these governments to run these countries in the manner, and it should be the people of these countries that stand up and tell the governments how to run the countries. I can tell you now, we are here in the UK, we are one of the 7th richest countries, and what we've got is nothing short of corruption going on within the government, and it's got many facets to the corruption. People pay their national insurance in this country. We do have a national health system, which was the envy of the world. If you was ever ill, you could rely on the system to, not charge you for operations that you needed, not charge you for medication. And that was really something we had that no other country has, to my knowledge, got at the same quality. Well, I say quality because now it is just a skeleton of what it used to be. It used to be something really good. If you've got a problem such as a slip disc now, you're going to have to wait in this country 7 months before you get to see a consultant who can then guide you through the medical process of having that repaired by some form of operation or other alternative. But that's how bad it's got. And we've never been taxed so much in this country. 20% now. It's the money is being pocketed by the rich in this country. They think we don't know what's going on, and it's the same system repeated even in the United States with the Congress. We've got a system in this country where we cannot elect half of the government, which is like a shadow government, which is the House of Lords. I know some people don't take the time out to realise that it's been stacked up against them in this country. Just for instance, if you even were elected, you wanted to change the government, you was elected Prime Minister, you couldn't make the laws without first going to the House of Lords in this country and getting their approval. So, yes, you find yourself now winning the election to become Prime Minister, and yet you've still got no powers to make laws unless they are approved by the House of Lords. It's the same if the House of Lords want to make laws in this country. The Houses of Parliament have got to okay them, but this is something that is repeated in all other countries. And it's these Houses of Lords, these millionaires and ministers that are using now taxpayers' money to fight wars for their profitability. We are rapidly bringing hell upon this earth in a fashion which is changing things very quickly, and it's changing attitudes very quickly. I've got a few friends who run their own businesses, and they deal with the public on everyday basis, and they're saying that they've noticed recently a change in the attitude with dealing with the public. They're no longer it's like they're reluctant to pay for the services or the goods in a fashion that I think the reason behind it is because they're struggling for cash. They're everything has gone up in this country, as I suppose it is the case with most Western worlds now, most of Europe. It's gone through the roof. Your shopping's gone up. Your service charges have gone up. Your fuels have gone up. Everything across every range, but the wages have remained the same and not kept up with inflation at all. But if we don't do something, then the problem doesn't get fixed. It's like, if we don't address this drug addict and get them fixed, and off the drugs, then they're only going to inevitably kill themselves with these drugs if we don't stop them. Right now, we've got these people that are addicted to money, and they will do everything within their power or at the resources at their dispense they will use, like what we've just witnessed here, in order to get more money. If you ask me, guys, the capital system has collapsed. It's failed completely now. There's lawless coming from the top now. It's been set as a precedent, and it will filter through all of these small communities in every country in the West, Europe as well. And we are going to end up with a real hell on earth at some point that is going to get out of control. And I think this isn't too far in the future. We're seeing it now, and pretty much no one's bothered because we have been distracted by the rising bills. Most of us are trying to keep a roof over our heads, keep food in the cupboards, and if we are lucky enough to afford the luxury of a holiday once a year, that's probably what we're more concerned with at the moment than a lot of things. But we can't just keep ignoring the fact, because this problem is getting out of hand and it's getting worse and worse, and you can't allow crooks to steal the wealth of countries as they are for themselves, use the country's defence, like the Navy, the Army and the Air Force, for their own reasons, to increase their wealth further, because at the end of the day they are sticking even our children on the line when they do these things. When we send pilots into the air to fire whatever missiles, and we send ships over there and we fire cruise missiles from them, there is a possibility that they will be retaliated on, and at the end of the day it will be a loss of life to someone back here at home or back in the United States that needlessly needed to happen and shouldn't have in the first place, because this is all about money. We're going, like I say, rapidly to a hell upon earth, and it's not the way it should be. Something really does need to change. I want to end the video shortly, guys, but I want to just, before I do, remind you that there is a fresh barrage of suppression taking place on the internet and on YouTube, and it's targeted at people that are talking about climate and the truth about climate. And these world leaders obviously have a different opinion on what is taking place with the climate. And when they start to suppress channels that are talking about climate, you have to ask the question then, why are they doing that? Why is it of interest? And I can just quickly say that they have raised millions, well, trillions of pounds in CO2 taxes. So if CO2 was no longer, a big issue, then surely that's going to leave them in a credibility problem. Because first of all, they used their so-called experts to bring out the fact that global warming was being created by CO2, and secondly, they have taken and raised, as part of this, trillions of pounds, and they're not going to give it back. But having said that, let's look at things in a different way than with regards to CO2. As you can see, the majority of the composition of our air, dry air that is nitrogen, 78%. There should be, I know it's a bit of a contradiction to what results we've got over the last 4 atmospheric tests with regard to oxygen, but it should be 21%. And then there is 1% missing from the entire makeup of all the air in the composition. That makes up the 100%, and that is the 1%. And what consists of that are all your other noble gases, such as, and compounds such as carbon dioxide. And as you can see, the amount of carbon dioxide measured in our atmosphere right now is around about 0.03%. Now, do you think, when you logically look at this, that something that consists of 0.03% can have an effect on anything in our atmosphere? What do you think? I think it's highly unlikely that the CO2 that is in our atmosphere is causing any problems. In fact, I think if there's a gradual increase in CO2, then all those things that have CO2 as part of their process, such as trees and things like that, that in turn produce oxygen, are going to thrive on that extra CO2. And in any case, millions of years ago, our atmosphere consisted mainly of CO2, and that was over millions of years scrubbed out the atmosphere by oceanic microorganisms that in turn again produced oxygen. So what they're talking about is a load of nonsense. And despite the fact that we now have charts such as the one we just looked at that show global temperatures declining whilst CO2 still increases, should be enough for anybody to be satisfied that CO2 is in itself just a false flag and a pretext to tax people unlawfully. And there should be some coming clean of these organisations that are paid by the governments and by the governments themselves. Guys, as always, there's a link down there if you want to support the channel and the research that we conduct. Now, we are an observatory, and it would just be great if there was just a bit more support for the channel here and there. So I'm going to say what I usually do. There's a link there, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And I hope I've given you some food for thought on these matters discussed. I'll catch up with you in the week. Bye for now.